My name is Latarra. People call me T, Tara. My name is Latarra. I am from Shreveport, Louisiana, originally, but I was a military child, so I moved around often, but born and raised in Louisiana. My early childhood was like a normal childhood, I would say. I'm the oldest of 3 siblings. I grew up in a household with my mother and my father, but I was raised predominantly, for the most part, by my grandmother. My mother had me at 16. She and my father got married when they were 18, and he was in the military, so I was about 2 years old. So I kind of lived with my grandmother for the first part of my life, I guess to help my mother with her transition because she was so young till she got settled. So, but I did go back and forth between the two of them, but predominantly I was raised by my grandmother. Growing up with my grandmother and my grandfather, the household was like a religious household. We went to church like 9 days a week. But, you know, it was a solid upbringing. It was, you know, I don't want to call us poor, but I come from meager beginnings, I'll say. But my grandmother also had a child at the same time my mother did. So I have an aunt who's a month apart from me. So we were kind of raised as sisters in that household also. But a lot of love. Family's very important to me. That was instilled in me early from being raised by my grandmother. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what kind of child you want to call me. I was active, involved in a lot of things. I had a good relationship with my parents, I would say. My mother, me being the oldest, I think she expected a lot from me. I took on a lot. Like I said, my mother was young, so she worked a lot. My father was often overseas and stuff. So a lot of responsibility fell on me to look after my brother and sister. But it wasn't like a chore, because we're very close, my siblings and I, so they were kind of like my babies. But my mother and I think we had kind of, I don't want to call it a strained relationship. I would say it wasn't a lot of affection. We didn't have an affectionate relationship. And it was kind of like just, you know, do what's expected of you and just go along with it, you know what I mean? So my father and I, we weren't that close in the beginning because there was a lot of, I'll call them disagreements in the household between he and my mother. So I kind of saw the worst in him, but now he's like my best friend. So it's funny how the transition in that relationship happened, but you don't want to know teenage Latarra, woo. My teenage years were a blur a little bit. Like I said, I was involved in a lot. In school, I was, you name it, class president, basketball, band, ROTC. On top of the church activities, I was just very active. I always excelled in school, so that was very important to me. But it was kind of like I was doing what was expected of me, but also trying to find who I really was. So there was kind of a conflict within me, if that makes sense. Teenage years, that's when I really started to like notice differences in myself than other people, you know what I mean? Like differences I had noticed before, but as a teenager, I knew I liked, you know, I liked things that were not supposed to be liked based on my upbringing, you know what I mean? That goes from, I started smoking marijuana as a teen, and I noticed also that, you know, I liked females, you know what I mean? At that time, we talking about early 90s, late 90s, you know, and that wasn't like, and I come from the South, so that was nothing that was like popular at that time. Like, we live in a day and age now where it's kind of acceptable, you know, it's kind of like the thing, everybody, but back then it was like, you know, so that's what I mean, there was kind of a conflict because I knew how I felt, but I also knew that it would be frowned upon, especially, you know, like I told you, in my household, it was religious, it's this, that, so my teenage years they were fun now. I had a lot of fun now, a lot of fun. But, you know, like I said, there was always a conflict of having to be this way and then having to feel this way. You know what I mean, if that makes sense. During my teenage years, I didn't feel safe to speak my truth at that time, only because, like I said, I didn't want to deal with the disappointment that may come from it, or to feel like, you know, I grew up Baptist, so it was always, oh, you going to hell. You know, everything was this and that. So I eventually did, but that was like after I had graduated high school. I remember I did have a conversation with my grandmother, and I kind of, you know, I told her in so many ways. I did, you know, I told her I don't remember how I put it, but it was not, I didn't just say I like girls. It was kind of something vague, and she was like, well, you know, that's just a phase. I'm gonna pray for you, whatever, you know. And I remember those are the only two people I had a fear of telling that I like females. It was my grandmother and my mother. Those were really the only two people that I was worried about. Everybody else was kind of like, whatever, but my grandfather, I came to his house one time and I was asking him for some gas money. And he said, pull your pants up. So I pulled them up. I said, oh, I'm just losing weight, Papa. He was like, no, you just want to look like one of them little boys. So that was his way of communicating his way that he knew, you know what I mean? And that kind of relieved it a little bit, so. But feeling safe, like I said, I didn't really at that time. I don't think I ever identified either way as a young person sexually. I'd never put a name to it. I never knew what to call it. I didn't have the words to say I'm straight or I'm homosexual. I didn't have those words. I didn't have that. It was more of just, like I said, I often joke about it, like, I felt this way, but I didn't have anybody to be gay with. So I didn't have a word to put on it. It was just, I knew what I liked. I knew what I was attracted to. I knew what I wasn't. So I really didn't identify either way as a young person, I don't think. My first relationship, well, I haven't really had many relationships. My first real relationship, I was in this relationship for like 11 years. I was with a lady who was about 7 or 8 years older than I was. I was very young. I think I was like 21 when I got into that relationship. She was almost 30 at the time. So I think it was more of like a mother kind of relationship, if that makes sense. I had just moved to New Jersey. We lived together. She had a very small child at the time. She was only 4 when I met her. She's 25 now, that's my baby. So I ended up raising a child with her. But it was more so like, she helped me to find my career path. She helped me to she pushed me to get into school, pushed me to go to college, things like that, blah, blah, blah. So it was not like it was a good relationship overall, but it was, again, I couldn't identify my truth with her to say, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. It was almost like I'm giving you what is expected. You understand what I'm saying? I left Louisiana when I was about 20, 19 or 20. I was really young, and growing up in Louisiana is not, it's a beautiful place. I love my hometown, I love where I'm from, but there's not a lot of opportunity there. And I always kind of knew that I wouldn't be there for the rest of my life, especially having traveled around with the military lifestyle. I had seen other places, been other places. So I knew the world was bigger than that, you know what I mean? And my dreams, my goals, I knew I couldn't do what I wanted to do in Louisiana. I couldn't succeed or achieve what I wanted to achieve there. So the opportunity kind of fell in my lap. I met the young lady who we're talking about, I was in a relationship with. And there was an opportunity for me to come here and go to school. Like I said, I had blown a couple of scholarships. In Louisiana, I had lost 2, I think. And at that point, it was just like, all right, I gotta do something. And I told my mom, I said, I'm gonna go away for a couple of weeks. I told her I'm just gonna go for the summer and see what happens. I left, it was the Monday after Mother's Day, May of 2003, I moved to New Jersey. And I just never went back. I just, you know, I never returned. When I moved to New Jersey, my goal was to start out at Rutgers. I went and applied and they accepted me and stuff like that. But then when I got there, they were saying that basically a lot of the credits didn't transfer that I had worked for in Louisiana. So they made me start over. They said, you gotta go to the community college first. So I kind of was like, I ain't doing this, I'm not. But I did it. So I did 2 years at the community college, did an associate's. I went to Rutgers, did 4 years at Rutgers, got the bachelor's degree. And then I got my master's at Fairleigh Dickinson. So those are all the degrees I have. Oh, then I went and got certified in education. I took my teacher's certs. So I became a certified educator for high school. And then I also got thrown into a job that I was with the state. So then I went to become a licensed substance abuse counselor also. So life just kind of like pushed me in that way. So my weakness, I don't think I would call it a weakness, but I would say the turning point, I guess you could say, was, you know, the moment I decided to come out. I remember I was like, looking at myself, I was standing in this mirror and I was like, completely naked. Don't try to think about me naked out there, you know, but I was just looking at myself and I looked into my eyes and I was basically looking at myself, like from myself, outside of myself, within myself. And I was just thinking to myself, like, this is who you are, you know, but you don't accept this. You don't accept this person. Like, you're telling people that you're this, but you're not. So you have to look in this mirror every single day and be good with it. Like, and if you can't do that, then who are you for real? So at that moment, I decided, like, I'm not gonna hide myself from anybody. Like, I'm here, this is who I am. And from then on, I wrote my mom a letter. I was in college and I wrote her a letter and I was basically came out in a letter, mailed it to her. People don't write letters no more, so that's like foreign, you know, but I wrote her a letter. And I remember waiting on her to call me or to come down to the school to see. She wrote me a letter back. And she said, well, since we writing letters, she said, I've always known that. She said, I know my child, whatever, whatever. And it was just like a sigh of relief, like, whew, that's it, that's all, you know. So after that, I didn't care about how anybody saw me or, you know, if they accepted me, if they didn't. I was good with myself, you know what I mean? And from that moment, I just decided, this is who you are. Here I am. In the relationship that I was in, I grew a lot because it gave me an opportunity to learn what I liked and what I didn't like about myself, what I expected from another person, what a relationship was, because like I said, I hadn't been in long-term relationships. I had more like situationships. I had a lot of situationships, you know what I mean? So that was my first time being in a relationship with somebody, you know what I mean? So it gave me an opportunity to see what's required, what's expected in a relationship, opportunity to be selfless and to be selfish if need be. And those things were, like I said, learned over time, I guess you could say. I think there's a lot of reasons the relationship ended. One being it was time. Two being I wasn't fully present. I'll say I had started to, we'll call it dibble dabble. And I wanted more, you know, I wanted more. I wanted to be in a relationship where I felt validated, I guess you could say. And I'm sure she will probably tell you a different version of why it ended, but that's her story to tell. But overall, I think the main thing was it was just time. We had outgrown the relationship, I'll say. My daughter, my scrappy dude. Like I said, when I met her, I was young and she was young, but she was 4 when I got into the relationship. She's 25 now. We talk almost every day, even throughout the separation. That's my baby. That's my baby. And I always made the decision very young that I didn't want to biologically have children. Like, I knew that from a long time ago. And the universe still gifted me with a baby anyway, you know what I mean? So that, she makes me proud. She's very certain of herself. She knows what she wants. She's doing her thing. And now she's about to have a baby. I just found out she's with child maybe 3 months ago. She's having a little boy. So I'm excited about that, you know. When that little baby gets here, I tossed around ideas of what I want that baby to call me. At first I said Maw Paw. Sierra, my daughter told me, no, that's ugly. My niece helped me come up with, she says, TT, won't you let the baby call you Lovey? I said, I like that. That has a nice ring to it. So the baby's gonna call me Lovey. I'm gonna be Lovey to the little man. How I feel about men that try to, I guess, approach me, get with me, whatever you wanna call it, it's expected, so I don't feel a way about it. All my life, men have tried to come on to me, they've tried to get with me, and I think, why wouldn't they though? You know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't they? So I'm not, that goes back to how I feel about who I am, my sexuality. I'm very certain of who I am and what I like, so I don't dislike men. I don't hate men. I love men for who they are. You understand what I'm saying? That doesn't mean I'm attracted to them. I want to be in a relationship with one. So it's more so like, nah, brother, but do you got a sister? Nah. I do. Today, I identify as a human being. I still don't put myself in a box. I think about sexuality as a line, and I think that line is very fluid. And I think everybody falls somewhere different on that line. Like, so I know for certain that I love women. I don't want to be with a man, so I guess that does, by definition, make me a lesbian. But I'm not like walking around like, oh, I'm a lesbian, I'm gay, I'm just me. I'm just me. And I like what I like, and that changes, you know, not from men to women, but the type of woman I like changes. I just go with the flow, man. Listen, I go with the flow. But I love women now. I love women. I haven't been molested in the sense of the word where I've been raped or anything like that, but I've had uncomfortable situations as a child, I would call them, where a family member, I'd say, who was kind of known to, like, you don't let the children stay around him, you know what I mean? He babysitted us from time to time, and it was like, I'll call them uncomfortable situations, but not, you know, I wouldn't call it like a sexual trauma. I don't think that that had anything to do with how I view men, only because I felt that way regardless. Like, prior to that, I remember when I was in, I was at an elementary school, there was monkey bars. I don't know if you remember monkey bars, but we used to do this move on the monkey bars called a washing machine. And that's like you would hang down and like swish your body around on the monkey bars. But a young lady did this, and I remember like getting caught looking up under her dress on the monkey. So, I mean, I didn't know what that meant as a child. I don't think children know those kind of things, but I remember those experiences early on. So I don't think that was like created later in life, or, you know what I mean? I think it's always been there. I just didn't have the words for it, you know? I've never been the type, like, I want to go to pride parades. Want to represent. What I will say is I do feel a responsibility to young people who may be struggling with identity, their sexual identity, just to reassure them that you can't be anybody else but who you are. And some days you may look like this, some days you may look like that. So I try to help people not box themselves in. You know what I mean? That's what I'll say. I feel like my responsibility is not to a community as a whole. I'm not a representative for a whole people. I'm who I am. That's like me saying, do I feel like the spokesperson for all Black people because I'm Black? I don't feel that I am, you know what I mean? I can speak for myself. And if I can offer any of my story to help you, I'll do that. But I've never been like, I'm here, I'm loud, I'm proud. That's not my personality type anyway. How do I feel about other studs? Like I said, I feel like people identify how they identify. First of all, let me define stud. A stud is a label, I'll call it, that people put on masculine women who are lesbian. I don't consider myself to be a stud. I would put more of like an androgynous label if I had to say something like that. Like, cause I like to tell people I feel like I'm split 65-35. Like, I have a lot of masculine traits. I have a lot of masculine energy. But I'm very certain that I know I'm a woman also at the same time, if that makes sense. My line of work, I've been working with adolescents since about 2005, which I think is another way the universe has given me children in a way. At first I started out as a substance abuse counselor with the male population who were like incarcerated, adjudicated because they're kids, but and then I moved on to pregnant teenage girls with psychiatric issues. And more recently, I work with 14 to 17-year-old population, young ladies with psychiatric issues also. So I worked with kids a lot of my life, and young people with trauma, I'll say. All of them have some type of trauma, so I think I definitely saw myself in a lot of those children, with the respect of just going through and not knowing how to deal, not having a voice for yourself, not being able to identify where you need help, identify where your hurt comes from. I guess things like that. Most of them have issues with their parents. And I think a lot of their trauma sometimes stems from their parents. So I think that's the biggest part of how I identify with them. Absolutely, I am definitely able to see my healing working with them. I think working with the substance abuse population, that's actually how I started identifying that my need for therapy also. I felt kind of like I wasn't good enough for that position because I was kind of like thrown into it. So to be successful, I read the curriculum that they used, but actually the curriculum ended up helping me. And so it kind of like opened the door, because I was only like 23, 20 when I started that job. So it kind of like opened the door to help me to identify where I wanted to grow and what I need to work on for myself. I am not doing any job. I'm self-employed. Working with young people can be taxing. And I don't think it's the young people. It's really the institution that governs these young people's lives, because it's sad, but it's about $1, you know, and the organizations, the staffing, you know, the kids, they get overlooked a lot. They don't get what they need. They get disserviced. And I think just the structure of the whole thing took a it was taxing, took a toll on me. Not the kids, but just not being able to service them the way you like to, or having to shortchange them. I feel like you have an obligation to, when you work with young people, it's a responsibility. So I just had to leave it alone and trying to get back to my goals and what I want to do with my life. My goals are, I want to be, well, I am a writer. I am an actress. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a host for this show. I've been given that opportunity. I just want to pursue my dream in the film industry. I think I'm sometimes misconceived as very nice because I smile a lot, or, you know, I have it all together because I'm confident. But some days I'm a mess, you know what I mean? So I think that's a misconception, but I think also people may look at me and think I'm like I said, masculine, or I don't like men or whatever, just based on my outer appearance, you know, but I think that's another misconception. If I could do one thing differently in my life, I probably would have pursued my dreams in the film and the music industry a long time ago. When I came to New Jersey, I was actually I was writing music, I was in the studio, I rap, I was performing. Before I left Shreveport, I was doing the same things, you know, doing rap shows, all this kind of stuff. But, and I had connected with some people in New York when I first got here, but I kind of stifled those dreams to pursue a more grounded goal that was guided by the person I was in a relationship with, like go to school, get your degree, do this, you know. So that kind of took me off course a little bit, but if I could redo anything, I think that would be it. If I could talk to anybody who can relate to anything, any part of my story, the one thing I would say is go with your gut, trust yourself, love yourself no matter what, and do the work. Don't be afraid to do the work to get to know who you are, and just own your story, no matter if you think it's parts of it that you may be embarrassed by, ashamed of, whatever the case may be, it's yours, it's your story. So own it, be comfortable with it, and just love every single part of it.